Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's session, Managing Tech Teams Without a Project Manager, Lessons from Tech Startup that Scale Lean. If you ever led a sprint and ended the week thinking, wait, what's actually got done? This session is for you. You launch a sprint, you think everyone's clear on priorities, and by Friday, half the teams worked on something completely different. In that quiet moment when you realize that no one really owned delivery. Everyone was busy, but not necessarily aligned. This is what I call ticket addiction. When developers follow exactly what's written in the ticket, even if it no longer make any business sense. If it's not in the ticket, it doesn't exist. And that's just one of many symptoms we see in PM-less teams. So why we are talking about this? Because at Intelvision, this is how we actually work. The majority of our clients run lean without a dedicated project manager. And after 5 years of building and scaling teams like that, we learned something important, that you don't need a project manager to have structure, but you do need ownership, rhythm, and clarity. And this topic resonates especially with early stage founders who are trying to do more with less. In a lean setup, you cannot afford people who only follow the system. You need people who can build it. So now let's unpack how this look like in practice and why so many startups decide to skip project managers in the first place. Here's what we will explore this together today. So we will start with why startups skip project managers, the reasons behind the decision, and why it sometimes make perfect sense. Then we will look at what goes wrong without one, right? The predictable pitfalls that come up when no one owns coordination. From there, we will dive into how lean teams stay on track, what replaces the traditional project manager role in those environments. And we will talk about engineer-driven delivery. That's where structure meets mindset. I'll also walk you through a real PropTech case study from DACH, where a team built an MVP 3 weeks faster than planned without a project manager. And finally, we will wrap up with a live Q&A so you can share your challenges and we can dig into them together. All right, so I'm Yurii Kotula, CEO and CTO at Intelvision, and I've spent my career building and scaling development teams, giving me a unique view of both the technical and the business sides of how software actually gets delivered. At Intelvision, we help startups and growing tech companies scale fast with vetted software developers from our network. We are not headhunters and we are not freelancers. It's a new service that we call talent as a service. It's a completely new and different way of accessing skilled engineers and other tech specialists that we designed for our clients. We designed talent as a service around three essential principles that matter most to tech leaders nowadays. So, no risk. You get commission-free CVs of mature and vetted engineers, and there are no upfront costs. You do not pay until you start working with someone for actual work. It's very fast. So developers can be working in your team within 14 days, and it's highly flexible. You only pay for what you use, allowing you to scale up or down easily. If you are looking for software developers but don't have the time or resources to search through endless CVs, handle interviews, and deal with recruiters, just book a call. Tell me the requirements, and we will find a couple of seniors so you can test our service without any risk and commitment from your end. So just scan a QR and book a slot with me to talk more. All right, so most startups skip project managers for very practical reasons. First, budgets are tight. When you are early stage, every euro goes to people who build, developers, designers, sometimes sales. A project manager can feel like an overhead when your runway is short and every role has to produce visible output. Second, that founders want to stay hands-on. They want to control priorities, they want to talk to users and steer the roadmap directly, which makes total sense early on. But as team grow, that same closeness can start blurring who actually owns delivery. And third, lean often gets misinterpreted as no coordination. Founders hear lean startup and think it means cutting out all layers of structure, but lean isn't less process. It's a smarter process. And it's not just theory. Over 50% of tech projects today are led by non-certified project managers, usually engineers or tech leads who take on coordination by necessity. That's a reality in most early teams. But here's the catch. When you remove that central role, someone still has to own clarity. If no one does, things start slipping. And that's what we will look at next. So skipping a project manager might make perfect sense in the early days, but when the team grows, the product evolves, that's where things start to crack. The first sign, it's a backlog rot and slippage. So you know that Jira board that started out fresh and structured, give it a few months, it quietly turns into a graveyard of half-finished tasks and in-progress features. No one is sure what's still relevant, what's blocked, and who is actually responsible. Then come to broken promises. Because when there is no one aligning expectations, what's promised to clients or investors doesn't always match what the team can deliver. It's not that people stop working, it's that no one's holding the big picture together. And then the engineers get confused, right? So you got smart, capable people stuck, not because they lack skills, but because they are missing context. Requirements shift, priorities blur, and by Friday, everyone's wondering, did we even build the right thing? And finally, you lose long-term planning. When every sprint feels like firefighting, strategy becomes a guesswork. You cannot see 3 months ahead because you are still trying to survive the next stand-up. And and the thing is that none of this happens overnight. It's slow. One sprint slips, then another, one unclear tickets, one missed thing, one assumption, and that's how lean turned into fragile. But here are the things. The problem isn't that there is no PM, is that no one has taken over the clarity that project managers usually protect. So definitely, lean doesn't mean chaotic. You don't need a full-time project manager to keep order, but you do need clear delivery ownership. When you remove a project manager, you are not removing accountability. You are redistributing it. And that's what defines whether a team scales or stales. The team that succeed without a project managers aren't lucky. They have built a system where clarity lives in the team, not in one person's calendar or task board. Every member understands who is responsible for why we are doing this, who defines what we are actually building, and who decides how to get it done. So that's what keeps things lean and predictable. Structure, but without bureaucracy. And that's actually the bridge to our next point, because if we are removing a project manager, someone still needs to own the why, the what, and the how. So who takes that on? For example, coordination can be shifted across three roles. So the product owner owns the why. They align with users, define priorities, and make sure that we are building what actually delivers value. The tech lead owns the what, so they are translating goals into deliverables, setting direction, and ensuring the technical side supports the product version. And the engineers own the how, so deciding the best way to execute, unblock, and deliver efficiently. They are not just coders, they are co-owners of delivery. Now, this model works only if it's glued together by one thing, by rituals. So daily things, sprint reviews, retros, those lightweight, recurring moments of alignment that keeps the team moving as one. This is how structure works in a lean team. So everything still has an owner, but the ownership is distributed. So technical solutions sit with the engineers. They make architectural decisions, define the stack, and ensure technical clarity. Sprint scoping is owned by the tech lead. They are the balance point between what's ideal and what's realistic, defining what the team can actually deliver in a sprint. Bug versus priority, bug versus feature prioritization belongs to the product owner. They decide what's urgent, what's valuable, and have to balance quick wins with long-term stability. And finally, user communication also falls to the product owner, making sure that product continues to solve real problems, not just internal assumptions. This clarity eliminates one of the biggest risks in project manager-less setups, the silent assumption that someone else is probably handling it. So now that the roles are clear, the next challenge is to make sure that the system support them. Because even with ownership defined, chaos can creep back in if the backlog isn't healthy. Here's a real example of what a team board often look like when there is no delivery owner. At first glance, it seems like work is happening. There are tasks, statuses, updates, but look closer. Add login flow, vacuum scope, fix API, and clear each one. Two demo tickets that do the same thing. Half of the tasks don't have owners, and none are linked to measurable outcomes. This is what happens when nobody curating the flow. So developers pick tasks, founders add more, and the sprint becomes a to-do list with no direction. The irony is that teams like this are busy. They are really very busy, but not necessarily productive. And that's where the concept of ownership needs to show up again. The goal isn't to add more management, it's to create clarity. So let's fix this backlog together, and I'll show you exactly how Lean turns chaos like this into a clean, realistic sprint. So fixing A massive sprint isn't that complicated. It just required discipline. Think of it like cleaning a cluttered drawer. You start by pulling everything out and deciding what stays. So step one, clean the junk drawer. Delete anything that doesn't tie directly to a business goal or sprint objective. Merge duplicates, mark dependencies, and eliminate anything that doesn't add real value. Once you do that, the board starts to shrink, but your clarity grows. A smaller, focused sprint always delivers more than a bloated one. That then comes the question, what about the tasks that aren't clean yet, that aren't clear yet? So you don't force them into the sprint, you park them, move them to a backlog or to define list. If a task is valuable but fuzzy, assign someone, usually the tech lead or product owner, to refine it over the next few days. If it's unclear and no one can explain why it matters, just delete it. A sprint should only contain tasks you understand well enough to finish. Now that we cleared the clutter, it's time to decide who actually owns tasks. Because when everything belongs to everyone, nothing really gets done. So step two is to define who owns what. Every task gets a single accountable person, not the team, not shared ownership, someone who will drive it from start to finish. This is where the product owner, tech lead, and engineer model comes in. It's the same structure we talked about earlier, simple, clear, and scalable. The product owner owns the why, the tech lead owns the what, and the engineer owns the how. When when you apply this to your sprint, you can literally see the noise fade away. Take add login flow, now owned by the tech lead and dev A tied to activation, or fix API, owned by dev B, clear purpose to support analytics. Even prepare demo, merged, clarified, and assigned to the founder who requested it. Each task now has a reason to exit, a phase behind it, and a measurable goal. That's what accountability looks like in a PM-less team. So now step three, building the new sprint plan is where we tie it all together. The rule is very simple. So only clear tasks move into the next sprint. If it doesn't have a clear owner, a clear purpose, and clear acceptance criteria, it doesn't go in. So we had acceptance criteria for each ticket, not as a formality, but as a shared definition of done. Then estimate the workload together with the team, but shift the conversation away from story points or velocity and focus more on outcomes, not just numbers. Ask what we can deliver that move the product forward this week. And finally, lock your sprint goal into a single sentence. One clear statement that anyone, developer, founder, or stakeholder could repeat if asked. Something like, this sprint, we enable users to log in and track their activity in real time. And that's it. That's your anchor. And once the sprint has that clarity, everything else aligns naturally. So decisions, discussions, and of course, delivery. And here are the results. Same product, same people, but now every task has a direction, ownership, and measurable success criteria. Add login flow isn't just an idea anymore, it's tied to a business goal, improve user activation. It's owned by the tech lead and dev A with a clear definition of done. The user can register, log in, and access the dashboard. Fix API, no longer a vague request, it has purpose, support analytics tracking. Prepare a client demo focused on validating the new UI before the next sales call, and every task connects to value. Even more importantly, look at what didn't make the cut. So refactor code base moved to the backlog, not urgent, not aligned with a sprint's goal. Add analytics dashboard deferred until the API fix is done. That's what disciplined focus looks like. When you start working this way, something remarkable happens. You stop managing chaos and start managing progress. Developers no longer need constant check-ins. Anyone already knows what matters, what's blocked, and what done means. This is a moment when a lean team stops feeling like it's missing a project manager because clarity and ownership have taken the role instead. So now the next question is, how do you keep it that way? And that's where your weekly rhythm comes in. You don't need a full-time project manager or long meetings to keep a team aligned, but you need structure. Hear what that looks like in practice. So let's say on Monday you start with a short sprint planning thing, just 30 minutes. You confirm what's been delivered this week, spot dependencies, and make sure that everyone knows what done means. That's your reset moment, a clear kickoff. Then throughout the week, you maintain momentum through daily stand-ups, 10 minutes focused on progress and blockers, not just status updates. And you combine it with different check-ins, and even distributed teams stay in sync without meeting fatigue. Thursday is your refinement session. This is where you prepare the next sprint. You define new goals, clarify some scopes, and prevent chaos from sneaking back in. Think of it as cleaning your house before it gets messy again. And finally, Friday, your demo and retrospectives. One celebrates what was done, the other examines how it was done. Together, they close this feedback loop. All of that adds up to less than 4 hours a week, but it creates continuous visibility, continuous focus, and there's no micromanagement, no PM chasing updates, just a rhythm that keeps the team self-driven. And that brings us to an important moment in that rhythm, the one meeting that defines whether a lean team grows or stalls. It's retrospective. So retrospective, it's very, oh, just a moment, it's very important trust engine because ask yourself, like, how often do you do retrospectives? Once a sprint, once a week, once a month, maybe once a quarter. But retro, I personally believe, is the most important ritual. You spend just 15, 20 minutes a sprint if the team is quite small, but you hear how the team can be more productive and efficient. You also train the team to think about what they made wrong and what to do better in the future. Also, the team feels that you are open to hear them. So whenever they might think that some feature might be done in a better way or simply there is some technical risk, they would be trained to talk about it openly. So retrospectives build trust. It also confirmed that by research that these sessions directly boost team productivity by around 20%, and increase the likelihood of hitting deadlines. At Intelvision, it isn't just theory. We run disciplined retros every sprint. It's how we stay agile, how we learn fast, and continuously sharpen our performance together. All this scheme is the feedback engine for the team and made by the team. And the best part that engineers run the show. So they owned progress, flagged risks, and demoed results. What I mean is that the ownership mindset is what made this setup thrive. When you build trust through rituals and clarity, something interesting happens that the team scope, the team stops depending on external control and starts running on internal drive. And that's the moment when you move from managed delivery to engineer-driven delivery. It's the difference between people who just complete tasks and those who take ownership of outcomes. Um, on one side here on the presentation, you've got the traditional coder mindset. So, these people, they are waiting for tasks, they expecting someone else to break work down and treating stand-ups or retros like ceremonies to attend, not tools to improve. On the other side, you've got the engineer's mindset, the kind we actively looking for. These are the people who take initiative. Um, they ask right questions early and they push things forward. They don't wait to be unblocked. They remove their own blockers and they manage outcomes instead of waiting for permission. They don't just think in tickets, they think in features, in impact, in value for users, for business. And that's what engineer-driven delivery is all about. A team where leadership comes from clarity, not hierarchy. This is exactly the kind of mindset that makes lean team work. Because without a project manager to coordinate everything, you need developers who lead from within. Spotting such engineers, it's not about how many frameworks they know or how fast they code, but about three core behaviors that show up in every high-performing PMless team. So first, it's proactivity. Great engineers don't wait to be unblocked. They initiate clearly. And if something is unclear, they don't just ask, what should I do? Hear what I think, does this make sense? They bring solutions, not confusion. Second, it's user thinking. So they think beyond the ticket. They care about how the product will actually be used, not just whether the acceptance criteria are met. You'll hear them saying things like, wouldn't it be better if the user could do this in one click instead of three? That's how you know they are building for outcomes, not output. And third, it's a delivery mindset. So the best developers are low maintenance, not low visibility. They don't go silent for days and reappear with surprises. They communicate progress, they surface blockers early, and they make sure that everyone stays aligned. If you want to go deeper into this topic, what truly separates a coder from an engineer, how to spot the difference in hiring, and how to grow proactive engineers inside your own team, scan the QR code on the screen. You will find a full webinar, my another webinar recording on our YouTube channel. And when you combine these three, proactivity, user thinking, and delivery mindset, you get a team that doesn't need managing. They manage themselves. And when you have that level of maturity in the team, you can take the next step, giving them tools that multiply their effectiveness instead of slowing them down. And that's where AI comes in. At Intellivision, we are reworking a development approach. I mean, actively integrating AI tools and agents into our daily development process, basically not just for experiments, but as a consistent part of how we work. We view AI not as a magical replacement for people, but as an amplifier for our engineers. The difference is stark. AI is not about faster typing. It's about better thinking. Because generative AI like GitHub Copilot, agents like Claude from Anthropic, they help our engineers complete routine tasks faster, whether it's generating code, writing tests, or just simply bug fixing. Based on our internal statistics, engineers using AI tools and agents complete tasks up to 2 times faster. And some of our clients are reporting up to 50% shorter development cycles thanks to smart AI support. While working with small team or early stage startups, it's crucial to save time and money, and that's where AI helps the most. This empowers developers to do more meaningful work. like architecture, problem solving, and business logic. So engineers, not just coders, is literally our working principle. That's how we see and build our teams. When we talk about managing teams without a project manager, the real challenge isn't tools or process. It's a mindset because most developers don't actually fail without a project manager. They just get stuck in habits that don't work in a lean setup. They come from environments where a project manager breaks down tasks, a BA defines every flow, and their job is just to code what's in the ticket. And the moment that scaffolding is gone, they stall. So some teams fall into what we call ticket addiction. If the ticket doesn't say it, it doesn't exist. And one engineer literally told us that that bug wasn't in a scope, it wasn't in a ticket, even though it broke the feature. So other developers freeze under spec paralysis when there is no step-by-step scope. Progress halts. We've seen even engineers stare at a vague story for 3 days instead of asking the founder one simple question. And then there is silence over clarity. Some engineers would rather guess than bother. Someone, or worse, deliver late rather than admit they are unsure. And what to do instead, if you're building lean, you cannot afford to babysit. So either train for autonomy early, give feedback fast, normalize asking questions, or hire for it from the start. During trial weeks, we test for this. If a developer waits 3 days for clarity instead of asking a single question, that's all the signal we need. We tested the no project manager team model with many clients' teams. And clients often highlight our professionalism. We meet deadlines or even deliver faster. We suggest new technology solutions and adopt to each client's specific workflow. Let me walk you through a real case to demonstrate the methodology. So one of our clients, a DACH-based PropTech startup, had no project manager, no business analyst, just a founder, tech lead, UX designer, and 3 other engineers. They needed to build a multi-feature MVP in 12 weeks, and result was delivered in 9. Why? Because everyone knew their lane. And that happened not because they worked over time, but because they worked with clarity. Every person understood how their piece fit into the bigger picture. So it all came down to clear roles and shared ownership, not titles, but responsibility. So the founder led the product vision. He wasn't just pitching ideas, he was deeply product focused, but with a strong sales lens. His priority was simple: deliver what sells and what truly aligns with real customer needs. He stayed in constant sync with the tech lead, never overpromising before understanding the technical effort required. In practice, he became the bridge between the sales and product, feeding real market signals into the roadmap and helping reduce uncertainty for the team. The tech lead owned delivery, supported by a part-time UX designer, but he didn't just manage Jira. He talked directly to users, catching insights in customer calls and post demo follow-ups. And that made his estimates sharper and the backlog more focused. He acted as a translator, turning the founder's vision into sprint-ready, actionable items. And the engineers stepped up, so they didn't just wait for assignments. They co-created specifications, they ran user testing and asked the right questions early. They were not just task takers, they were real product contributors. It wasn't traditional, but it worked and worked very well. There was no overhead, no hierarchy, just high trust and very clear rhythm. That setup helped them validate fast, learn from real users, and scale their product foundation, all without needing to expand the team too early. And after the initial MVP phase, the team didn't rush into hiring a product manager. Instead, they doubled down on what already worked and extended their system by adding what we call clarity enablers. So they didn't add bureaucracy, they added structure that kept everyone aligned. So first, refinement sessions got smarter. They made weekly refinement a non-negotiable habit. Instead of debating priorities in real time, they came prepared with effort already estimated. And this allowed them to prioritize based not on what's urgent, but more like what's smart to build next. It's effort versus value. It gave engineers a longer runway and a clear sense of what's coming up next. Second, they added part-time specialists like the UI designer working about 20 hours per week. And this designer wasn't there to just make things look good. She worked hand in hand with a tech lead to map user flows and write lean specs. In other words, she acted as a product scoper, giving engineers full context before a single line of code was written, and drastically reducing surprises later. And and third, peer reviews uh, became a cornerstone. So they were not only for code quality, but for catching misunderstandings early, before they turned into blockers. All decisions, specifications, and feedback were documented in a Notion-based product wiki, a living system where every engineer could operate independently, yet stay connected to the bigger picture. So instead of adding process, they added clarity. And the team stayed small, fast, and incredibly focused, scaling the product one feature at a time without slowing down. This team wasn't process heavy or manager dependent. It was a system designed for clarity and not control. And this is the real takeaway. So when you replace hierarchy with ownership, you stop managing tasks and start managing context. That's what truly lean teams do differently. They don't rely on one person to keep everyone aligned. They rely on rituals and transparency to do their job. In other words, clarity becomes your product manager. That's a shift from coordination to alignment and from supervision to trust. And yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for joining me today. We will send the full webinar recording to everyone after the session, so you'll be able to revisit any part of it whenever you need. I'm also offering a free one-on-one consultation for tech founders and team leads who want to improve team performance, release features faster, and identify process bottlenecks in lean setups. If it sounds relevant, just scan a QR code to book a short session with me. I will look at your current challenges. We will discuss it together and map out a few next steps you can implement immediately. You can also scan the QR code on the on the right, sorry, to find me on LinkedIn, send me a message, and we will arrange a meeting.